We learned over the weekend that early Friday morning, FBI agents searched the Maryland home of John Bolton, the former national security advisor to President Trump during his first administration. They were seen entering his home in Maryland and his business in Washington, where he has had a business for some time. Bolton, of course, has been, after he left the administration, has been a critic of Trump, attacking his foreign policy, national security decisions. I mean, he's been in the forefront. And I think if you recall, after Trump took office, he withdrew Bolton's security.
That's right. At the beginning, in January, almost as soon as President Trump came into office, he revoked the security clearances for John Bolton. He hasn't been in government for about 6 years now, but it was one of the immediate actions that President Trump took. He has been at odds with Bolton since he fired Bolton for disagreeing with him.
And he wrote a book, I think, where he indicated that he felt Trump was unfit and felt that during his second term there would be retribution. And here it is.
Here we go.
Here's ABC News Washington managing editor Catherine Fulders explaining more on this search.
They left with boxes. Those boxes, I'm told, were full of documents. Of course, they have to go through those documents. They presume that some of those documents have classification markings on them. That's how they got the search warrant. They seized electronics. They seized all sorts of things that now the FBI is tasked with sifting through to see if any of those items, documents, for example, that were listed on that search warrant are things that they found in the search.
And you'll recall 3 or 4 years ago, there were some classified document searches performed on Mar-a-Lago and President Biden's home, where his Corvette was stored in the garage. But anyway, there's some classified document searches that were done, and Trump was actually indicted on that, although those charges have been dismissed over that whole immunity. Well,
now he's the president, but they found classified documents in his bathroom. In boxes in his bathroom.
Who knows what will end up happening with that? The Biden situation seems to have been, but Bolton doesn't have the same immunity. He doesn't have the presidential immunity or anything like that. If he had classified documents and they were obtained or kept illegally, who knows where that will go? It's just, the timing of it just smells bad in light of Bolton's attacks and criticism of Trump. But Trump did say he was going to go after him.
He did, and he reporters this weekend asked him about it. He had this to say.
And I'm not a fan of John Bolton. I thought he was a sleazebag, actually. And he suffers major Trump derangement syndrome, but so do a lot of people, and they're not being affected by anything we do. I don't know anything about it. I just saw that. I'll find out about it. But if you believe the news, which I do, I guess his house was raided today, but my house was raided also.
So if you believe the news.
I don't even know what that was about.
But what was interesting right there is he said, if you believe the news, which I do, although he has attacked the media probably every day since he took office.
Yeah, more than anyone else. ABC News chief Washington correspondent Jonathan Karl broke down what Bolton has said about potentially being targeted by President Trump.
Just days ago, I asked Bolton if he feared being a target of President Trump's.
Are you worried that they're going to come after you in some way? He's hinted at it before.
Well, I think he's already come after me and several others in withdrawing the protection that we had from the Iranians.
Bolton is one of many Trump critics who have been targeted by the White House and the Justice Department. The president himself has suggested that many of his political opponents, including former Presidents Biden and Obama, should be in prison.
That's kind of crazy.
Yeah, especially in as much as Trump was able to successfully convince the United States Supreme Court that acts that occur during the course of your presidency are immune from prosecution.
That's right.
And so anything Obama and Biden may have done, even under Trump's definition of inappropriate, were probably done during the course and scope of their presidency and may have some level of immunity.
That's right. So, look, one of the things that struck me in reading about this story is the Wall Street Journal, which is typically fairly conservative. Their editorial board ran an op-ed that said this: Trump's vendetta campaign targets John Bolton. And then the subhead is the FBI raid makes clearer that second-term success for the president includes retribution. And, and they just start right off by saying President Trump promised voters during his campaign for a second term that he had bigger things on his mind than retribution against opponents, but it is increasingly clear that vengeance is a large part, maybe the largest part, of how he will define success in his second term.
Ouch. Yeah.
And this is the Wall Street Journal.
The Wall Street Journal, which is a fairly conservative magazine and seen as being pretty balanced in terms of Republican, Democrat.
The New York Times also had one, and they're seen as left-leaning. Trump gets his revenge on John Bolton. Who's next? There's a member of the Department of Homeland Security, former member, who said when the news broke on Friday that John Bolton's home was being raided, that his wife said to him, "We're next," because he was with during the Trump administration, the first one. He was part of the administration, and then he was on the outs, and so he feels like he'll be a target next.
I will say this, as a former prosecutor, I'll make two comments. One is a former prosecutor, one is a defense attorney. As a former prosecutor, you have to acknowledge that in order for the FBI to get a search warrant to an individual's home or their office, and especially the home, that there is a high level of scrutiny that a judge would have to approve and read before he or she could order a search warrant. In other words, I know it's a fairly low level. It's probable cause to believe that there's evidence of a crime, and so I guess I'll give the FBI the benefit of some doubt that they at least had some probable cause. But I'll also say this: you just mentioned that Bolton's wife said, "We're next."
It's not Bolton. It was another DHS official.
But Bolton clearly knew he was in the crosshairs.
Yep.
So I would just say this: if he did have classified documents in his house, like, what are you thinking? You know what I mean? If you know that the administration's coming after you, turn them back over. Give everything back. Get it so that it's not there when somebody shows up by turning it over to the appropriate
I'm not sure
authorities.
that he does have anything, right? And that's one of the things that the Wall Street Journal editorial points out. They think it's unlikely that he broke any laws on national secrets, but they say perhaps Mr. Trump intends for the process itself to be the punishment, even if there's no criminal charge. He has to pay for legal counsel. His family has to endure the anxiety of being under federal government siege.
That's true.
So they took his wife's cell phone because it was on the counter and not in her pocket. So she's not even under investigation, right, as far as we know. But they took her cell phone because it was sitting on the counter. I don't carry my cell phone in my pocket at my house.
That'd be a stretch for a search warrant, because the search warrant under the Fourth Amendment has to describe the items, things to be seized with some particularity.
The news is reporting they're pretty broad warrants.
Yeah, so search for anything that could have anything to do with national security. That'd be a stretch. But I mean, I can understand classified documents. You can go through boxes and see something that says classified at the top and go, okay, or you see something that says, privileged, confidential, for your eyes only, that type of thing. I mean, there are a lot of things in terms of documentation that at least they could seize and look at, and they were seen leaving his home. I don't recall what they seized from his office, but he had an office in D.C. and his home in Maryland.
So there were some papers and some electronic devices, so at least one phone that we know of. So
you can be assured that the FBI is going to go through that the Department of Justice is going to go through those documents and see if there's something there that could lead to criminal prosecution by someone who is in possession of secured documents, confidential documents that they shouldn't be. But I mean, Bolton can't be that foolish that he would leave something like that around.
And I'm sure he knew he did know that he was a target. He's been a target for 6 years since he left the last administration, but the last Trump administration, I should say. But the other thing, too, is that he has not backed down on his willingness to call out what he thinks are foreign policy mistakes that the president is making in his administration. He's like, he just continues. Even on Friday, as this was unfolding, he was still talking about foreign policy mistakes that the administration was making.
And he's one of the former Trump administration officials who's had their security detail taken from them, which puts them at some risk anyway. So I don't know whether he's sort of privately obtained somebody or he's got somebody that's helping him with that. But I mean, he's clearly under Trump's radar, and I don't know. It's a sad fact, and I hope this isn't the first of a domino effect of individuals who are going to.
Well, we know that there's multiple. Actually, there's at least 3 people he's targeting for what they're saying is mortgage fraud. We also know he said former President Obama, has committed treason and he should be in jail.
Yeah. Wow. When we come back, Ryan Bate, the man accused of killing 2 police officers in Tremont, had his first court appearance on Friday where he appeared to be very emotional.
Are you Ryan Michael Bate?
Yes, Your Honor.
It was a tough thing to watch. We'll talk about that when we come back after the break.